uh, do a little introduction of yourself too. So that would be helpful.
Sure. So my name is Emily Bolesta. I am a current graduate student at George Washington University here in DC. And my background is mostly in archaeological collections. So I was the Archaeological Collections Management Intern here at the Museum Resource Center for the National Capital Region for the National Park Service. And we're going to talk about what all that means. So, what is the National Capital Region? The National Capital Region manages the parks in and around DC. So, we have parks that touch Virginia, West Virginia, and Maryland, the longest being the C&O Canal, which you can see running from the district all the way to the upper left of the map here to Cumberland. But we also have parks in Maryland, such as Antietam Battlefield, Monocacy Battlefield, parks in Virginia, such as Manassas Battlefield and Prince William Forest Park, and parks in the District of Columbia, including the White House, the National Mall, and Rock Creek Park. You can see all 13 of our parks, as well as their approximately 111 units within on a list over there to the left. So as you can probably gather, we have a huge disparity of, or a huge mix of historic, prehistoric, domestic, and military sites. On the left here, you can see Fort Washington, one of the circle forts built to defend DC and used throughout the 19th and 20th centuries for a variety of wars, whether that they actually saw combat or not in this area. But on the right, you can see some of our natural and industrial history that we have here in the Capital Region with Great Falls Park, managed by the C&O Canal. This is the fall line on the Potomac River, and the C&O Canal follows it all the way from the district all the way to Cumberland. But we wanted to make sure, because so much of this internship was in the lab and in the Museum Resource Center, we wanted to go out and explore the parks and see what they had to better understand the collections we were seeing. We were doing site assessments. We were going out and seeing our historic structures in situ and even interacting with our heritage breeds. And the opportunity to see it in action and see what our work was doing to support the parks in our region was really a valuable and wonderful experience. And I will be honest here, a little bit of this part of the presentation is selfish. The rest of my NCPE interns should come visit the National Capital Region. It's absolutely beautiful. So what is the Museum Resource Center? So Museum Resource Center, affectionately known as MERCY, is the support system for the region. We function as subject matter experts, as well as housing the historical and archaeological collections for the parks in the National Capital Region. We do not accession collections. We care for each park's accessioned collections, which they might not be able to curate, whether that be due to a lack of resources or simply just a lack of space. And this is also home to the Regional Archeology Program, where my internship was through, which manages the roughly 1.8 million archaeological artifacts in our region. That number is growing all the time. We also manage the artifacts from all archaeology done within the parks, whether that be by park staff or by contractors. And we also oversee compliance and violations with the Archaeological Resources Protection Act, which gratefully, we haven't had any ARPA issues this summer, but we're always on the lookout. So this is some indication of what our storage space looks like. On the left, you can see the archaeological collections, all in the trove of Hollinger boxes stacked to the sky. This is about, if you could see through the shelves here, I would estimate about 3/4 of the archaeological collections here at MERCY. And all of those boxes you see are full. Some of them are overfull. We have many archaeological artifacts. Now, on the other side of the building, they also have history artifacts, and this is really where you can see the huge disparities in our collection, where we have furniture, we have military history, we have lighting, we have some of the statues there. You can see that are molds for the statues at the Korean War Memorial. It's not just one type of object we have here at MERCY. We have everything, and we need to be adept at taking care of all of it. So our main task this summer was to manage and take care of the curatorial gaps in this huge and disparate collection. So you can see some of our major tasks over here to the left. But this was these were our main tasks all summer. This included rehousing work on long-term storage, inventory updates, assisting visiting curators with their annual inventories, and most critically, cataloging. So this was our biggest task this summer and involved the processing and cataloging of both new incoming collections as well as bringing older legacy collections up to date. I myself worked on projects from 1958, 1979, 1981, as well as projects from 2012, 2015, or 2023 that had been under Mercy's curation, but never actually processed. On the left, you can see my fellow NCPE intern, Hannah Ramirez, entering all of those collections into ICMS, while on the right, you can see me working with an older legacy collection of Civil War leather that needed to be rehoused and re-inventoried before it could go for long-term storage. At a rough estimate, I would say each of us cataloged around 25 projects of various sizes this summer, amounting to about 3,000 objects. Now, aside from cataloging, artifact identification was also a huge component. As Mercy and the Regional Archaeology Program have to function as subject matter experts, it was really important that we not only knew what we were looking at, but that we could communicate that to others. I came into this internship with a fair amount of experience with the material culture of this region. I had worked as a laboratory manager for a few years, but the other interns, Hannah was from Tucson, Arizona, and was very familiar with the Southwest, but not as much with the Mid-Atlantic. And our other intern, Sam Thomas, who was not NCPE, his expertise was in faunal material and was a wealth of information for that, but struggled with ceramics and glass. This even extended to our curators in the parks. Some of them had come from other regions or other specialties and needed some additional help in finding what artifacts we had in this region. So building out our study collection and being able to utilize it to train visiting curators as well as each other became an invaluable resource. On the left, you can see a bisque porcelain figurine that I snagged for our study collection to fill in a gap. You don't find large pieces of figurines like that very often, and it seemed to be beneficial to have as a study tool. But even then, I had gaps in my own knowledge, which our supervisor, Karen Orentz, often had to fill. Civil War, military history is not my strongest suit, which is tricky when you manage 3 battlefields. So on the bottom left, you can see 2 mini balls. One on the leftmost mini ball has these incised grooves, which is what I would much more typically see in any of my work. But on the right, with these raised ridges, Karen was able to identify it as specifically from the North Carolina School for the Deaf, Dumb, and Blind. And having the place of manufacture adds so much more to the history of that site and to the narrative that we just didn't have prior to that. On the right, you can see some of the rehousing work we had the opportunity to do. I've always wanted to learn rehousing of artifacts. It doesn't come up very often in archaeology to make specific cavity molds for artifacts like this, but when it does come up, you need to know how to do it. So these were some buttons that were from the Civil War, from a soldier, that were proposed for conservation, and I had the opportunity to make cavity molds for them ahead of their transport. And finally, the other main artifact work we did was mending. Similarly to rehousing, we don't often do mending in archaeology. Much of that is left to conservators. But in this case, we felt it was best both for the storage of our nice little frozen Charlotte here, as well as for education, that she be back in one piece. She had unfortunately been broken during analysis in the lab a few years ago. And so being able to put her back together, both for our education on how to mend and to be able to use her as an educational tool, really became the best option. Also, being able to work in the lab, as wonderful and amazing as it is odd when you're in a complete vacuum. So luckily, we were able to go out to Cresap's Fort with the Maryland Historic Trust's annual field session and help assist in their excavation. This was particularly interesting for me because the 1979 project that I mentioned earlier that I had helped catalog was a legacy collection from this very site that had never gotten processed. And so getting to update that material for the field school as it was happening and getting in their new excavation data in real time really helped put the entire site in perspective and help us figure out what we were dealing with and where the gaps in our narrative were. And they were a wonderful, wonderful host to us while we were out there. So what we learned and where we struggled, we have a great multifaceted collection in our region and consequently here at Mercy. We had tons of parks with many people and many professionals working through that. Having professionals constantly coming in and out provided each of us with the opportunity to pick their brains and look in on their projects. We were able to, in talking with them, find where our gaps were and find what we needed to do better, as such as building out the study collection and rehousing the objects we had that we needed to handle on a daily basis. And these were both deeply rewarding. But by the same token, we had some struggles, like I already mentioned. Not knowing Civil War material became a bit of a stumbling block for me and something I had to overcome pretty quickly. In addition, working with offsite curators was something I was completely unused to, and it became tricky when we had a question about an excavation or need additional catalog numbers, which might take days or even weeks to be able to update. And as I'm sure all my fellow NCPE interns can probably guess, our biggest challenge was the looming transition from ICMS to MCMS, which forced us to change deadlines and meet new priorities that were entirely beyond our control. But overall, each of these things were challenges to overcome rather than roadblocks. So overall, we overcame it. And the NCPE internship experience was a really great and rewarding one. Hannah and I each got to learn a great deal and interact with some truly incredible people at our time at Mercy. And I think that the skills we've learned here are definitely going to help follow us into the rest of our careers. I think that's all I have. Julie, are you still there? I don't know if you can take back over control.
No, I'm still there. I managed to find my audio button. Just took a moment. Well, thank you so much. That is so great. And if there are any questions for Emily, go ahead and put it in the chat. And I really appreciate your being so thorough with your presentation about what it is that you were able to do, and also upfront about some of those challenges that you had to overcome. And as you said, some of them are beyond the control of mere mortals, like, you know, other federal employees included. So that's always good to know. It really gives you a taste of what it's like being in federal service. So I guess the question for you that I have is, does this give you an idea, Emily, about where you're going next?
I think it does. Again, I came out of the private sector, and so I had worked with the Park Service and with federal regulations from the outside, and seeing it from the inside provided me a very different perspective, and I think a very beneficial one that really does give me a better view of the field as a whole and how each of those parts works together to make archaeology archaeology.
Mm-hmm. That is so great. Well, hopefully you'll and you're still at George Washington, right? You've got another year?
Yes, I have one more year. I should be graduate. If all goes well, the plan is to graduate in May of 25.
Right. Oh, fingers.
So, yeah, and hoping to continue with the Park Service after that, but we'll see where our life takes me.
Yeah, wonderful. We hope so too. All right. Well, thank you so much, Emily. So again, if you have any questions for Emily or Shawnya, our next speaker, please put them in the chat. Let's see. Our second presenter today is Shawnya Peterson, whose official title is Field-Based Historic Preservation Intern at Channel Islands National Park in California. And I want to thank you, Shawnya, for presenting. And are you able to share your screen?
Yes, yeah, I will go ahead and share my screen really quick.
I know we practiced yesterday, but somehow, sometimes practice doesn't make perfect. So
yeah. Zoom is
something's coming up.
special. Okay, there we go. So, hello everyone. My name is Shawnya Peterson, and I have been spending the summer as a field-based preservation trades intern at Channel Islands National Park, which is based in Ventura, California, so about an hour north of Los Angeles. Oh, so about me a little bit. I'm from Norfolk, Virginia originally, born and raised. And I graduated from Mary Washington. I saw a UMW shout out in the chat. I'm also a Mary Wash grad. I studied history and English and I graduated in 2019. And since graduating, I've been working food and bev, and I started my first year of grad school this past fall, and I have one more year. And I'll also be graduating in May of 25, and I'm a historic preservation grad student at Clemson's program in Charleston. So my major interests that I like to focus on are social history and how that intersects with the built environment, construction methods. I really enjoy hands-on work, historical research, architectural history, documentation, and community-oriented preservation. So Channel Islands, like I said, are about an hour north of LA, approximately on the coast of California. They're the ancestral homelands of the Chumash indigenous people. And the park headquarters is in Ventura, California. So park visitors can take a ferry out to the islands and then come back to the mainland. And there's camping and hiking, paddle boarding, and snorkeling, and all of the islands have a campground, I believe, and infrastructure for visitors. There are 5 islands that you can kind of see on the map: Anacapa, Santa Cruz, Santa Rosa, San Miguel, and Santa Barbara. And 3 of 5 of those are currently open to the public. And I was fortunate enough to visit all 3 of the islands that are currently open to the public. Even though we were only doing projects on one, my boss for my internship allowed me to take 2 days and just spend a day like going out on the park boat and visiting Anacapa and Santa Rosa. So I was able to really get to know the park quite well, and it was really wonderful to kind of absorb the whole scope of things. There is a lot of marine biology and a lot of researchers that come into the park. There's a huge amount of biodiversity and species that are specific to the Channel Islands, including the Channel Islands fox. There's cultural significance to the Chumash people, and in the 19th and 20th century, there was a lot of ranching that occurred on the island, so there's legacy of that as well. And there's archaeological evidence of human habitation on the islands going back 13,000 years, which I think is pretty incredible. Yeah, like I said, 13,000 years, those are the oldest remains that have been found on the island of indigenous people. The Chumash were forcibly removed from the islands by 1822. But the tribes have an ongoing relationship with the National Park Service, which has been really cool and interesting to learn about and witness in the work that we do. Anytime we are doing work that might cause some kind of ground disturbance, we have a tribal monitor and present at the site to observe the work. And we have a relationship with the Chumash that has been ongoing and is developing. And this upcoming weekend actually is going to be the Tamal Crossing, which is where the Chumash build a cypress canoe, I believe, and then sail it from the mainland out to the island, which is something like 16 miles. So that's going to be coming up this weekend, and it's a really important component of the internship and my experience and what I've learned so far. The internship was through NCPE and the National Park Service, and I worked alongside the Channel Islands preservation team. The preservation team at Channel Islands is a network crew, which means that they go to different parks and different areas in the region and do work there. So I was doing a lot of construction work, maintenance work on historic buildings in Channel Islands, but also we did work at some of the structures in the Santa Monica Mountains, which is part of the Mediterranean coast. We are currently at Cabrillo National Monument in San Diego, which has been really incredible to see and experience. There's a lot of military history in the park, so that's been another component of what I've learned. We were also up at Pinnacles National Park, and we have a long-standing relationship with that park. We were doing a really cool project where we were building a foundation for a 19th century barn that is within the park boundaries. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But I also helped to transcribe some oral history interviews that were done with scientists that worked in the park in the 90s and early 2000s. So kind of getting a sense of the administrative history as well was really cool. So like I said, at Pinnacles National Park, we were working on the foundation of the barn, and you can see Pinnacles and Hollister, which is where we stayed, on the map over there. I also laser scanned the barn so that once we had finished the work that we were doing, building a new foundation, we had a record of the work that was done and how we left it, and kind of a good jumping off point for future work. In Santa Monica Mountains, we did a lot of work at Peterson Ranch. There was some vandalism that happened, unfortunately, and we replaced a door and did some work there to prioritize safety to anyone that might be in the area. At Santa Cruz Island, we are doing some work to preserve buildings that are associated with the ranching history, including replacing some fencing that has been in the area for a bit. And we are also doing work to repaint the visitor center, which is an adobe from the 1800s. And there is a ranch outbuilding that needs some work. So a lot of the work was preparatory for future tours that are going to be out to the island. And at Cabrillo, we are currently working on measures to preserve the gun mount, which was part of the military base that was on the peninsula. We did some work pouring gravel in and weeding and preserving the metal ring that used to house a Panama gun. And we just finished up work with that earlier today. So that was really exciting. Here's some photos from Pinnacles. We had a cement truck come and pour concrete footings and cut wood beams. And the barn, when I arrived there on a previous tour, had been jacked up a few feet. So it was really tall, and we went in underneath and put the concrete footings in, put the wood in, and got mortar in and pointed and left it in a really good shape. And the next phase is going to be replacing some of the cladding on the exterior. And yeah, there's a photo of me laser scanning the exterior of the barn, which was really fun. At Peter Strauss Ranch, we covered up a door that was kind of exposed and perhaps posed a bit of a danger to visitors, so we covered that up. Very cool to see the Santa Monica Mountains as well. And on Santa Cruz Island, we replaced some of the fencing, got to hew some wood, which was very fun. And on the right there, you can see the meat shed, which is going to be kind of rehabbed, but it's going to be a lot of work, so a partial rebuild in coming tours for the Prez crew. My typical schedule for this internship was generally Monday through Thursday, 7 to 5. We worked 10-hour days, but depending on travel and where we were going for the internship, or for the work that the crew was doing, we would have either 4 days on a tour. This past tour at Pinnacles was 8 days, so we're going to be departing tomorrow back to Ventura. And normally I would wake up around 5:45 and then be ready to leave for the job. Can you guys hear me okay?
We lost the sound for just a moment, but I think you're back with us.
Okay, sorry, my AirPod died. So we would generally work, take a break for lunch, get back to the job site, and then go back to the hotel or the campground, whichever we were staying at. When we were working out on the islands, we would take a boat out and then generally stay at park housing. When we were working at Pinnacles, we were staying in Hollister, which is about an hour drive away. So we would drive into the work site and then operate out of the maintenance buildings that were there. So these are some photos of me, my Be Real. These are me being real at my internship. These are some slices of life of my summer. So these are from Pinnacles, from some time on the boat, some office work, some time on Santa Cruz that I spent, and some time at Pinnacles and Cabrillo. So really kind of wide swath of things that I was up to. So a really awesome component of my internship was the fact that my supervisor was really flexible and really wanting to facilitate this experience for me. I am born and raised in Virginia. I go to school in South Carolina, and this is my first time ever on the West Coast at all. I'd never been to California before, so he really allowed me a lot of flexibility in my schedule and was super supportive of any external projects or travel that I wanted to do to see the region or any experiences that I wanted to do. So in the very beginning of my internship, when I just arrived to California, I managed to get into the California Preservation Association's annual conference that was taking place in LA. That was really great experience, great way for me to hit the ground running and meet people and get a sense for what preservation is like in California. I also got to meet and get to know people in the University of Southern California's Heritage Conservation, which is kind of the West Coast equivalent of what I do. So it's cool to see the differences in our programs and the similarities and the different things that we focus and the things that we both learn. I was able to connect with people in the preservation world out here, make professional connections, and get to know people that are doing the same thing as me, which is really valuable for my future professional life after I graduate. One of the really exciting and incredible projects that I got to do outside of my internship, I connected with a HABS photographer in advance of my internship, and I also connected with a USC student who is also a fellow NCPE intern, who's also on the call right now, Sam Malnati. Had previously in the works a HABS documentation of the East Block of San Quentin State Prison, which is in the Bay Area. So we got to go into the corrections facility, which the East Block, which is the former death row building, had since been emptied of prisoners. There were no incarcerated people in the building at the time that we were there documenting, but we came in and laser scanned the interior, used Matterport, which is a sort of virtual tour software. And the HABS photographer that we were working with took large format photographs so that we are able to compile the information that we have. I hand measured a cell within the East Block And we're going to eventually donate these documentations to the Library of Congress. So those will be publicly available at some point in the longer term future, probably. But that was really valuable experience. And the first time that I'd done field documentation outside of a classroom setting. So really grateful to have been able to do that. I was also able to travel to the Bay Area and the Northern Coast. My partner was working at their own internship in the Bay Area, so I got to make visits up there and got to get to know the area quite a bit. So that was wonderful. These are some photos of me at the CPF conference, some photos from San Quentin and the Bay Area. So some of the things that I've learned, it was really cool to come out to California and get to know the kind of legal landscape, because California is fairly unique in terms of preservation, with CEQA and certain legal initiatives at the local level. Kind of got a crash course in that, and it was very cool to get some background in how preservation works. And I also got to know how preservation works within the national government and see how NPS structures function, and get to know the process for project funding and planning for the future when it comes to working at the federal level. I also expanded my trades knowledge and got experience working in a professional setting with a crew. I really enjoy hands-on work, and the trades are something that I want to dedicate more time and energy into learning about. So this was really wonderful opportunity for me to get my hands dirty and get some really direct experience doing that. Perhaps one of the most valuable parts of the internship was just the opportunity to come out to California. Like I said, I'd never been out here before, and California kind of existed in my mind as more of an abstract concept than a place, but it was really wonderful that I was able to come out here, and even more valuable that I was able to see so much of the state. I road tripped out here, and on the way out got to see a lot and got to experience a lot of the state on the way to my internship. So it feels a lot more concrete, and it feels a lot more attainable. So moving forward into my professional life after I graduate, California definitely feels like an option for me in terms of where I would like to move, where I would like to work. So that has been a great door that has been open for me. Yeah, within the bigger picture, like I said, getting a sense of the legal structures and culture within California. I got to experience different architectural styles and city plans and see some different histories that exist that are on the West Coast. Got to learn from professionals and fellow students, and it was also very cool that I got to see and interact with the archaeology team at Channel Islands National Park and get their perspective, because we're all kind of under the umbrella of cultural resource management professionals. So this map is kind of a sense of where I was able to spend some time and have some significant experiences. And on the left are places that I visited on the drive out. So I really got pretty wide swath of experiences out here, and I'm so incredibly grateful for all of it. So if you'd like to reach out, feel free to email me or follow me or message me on Instagram. And here's a photo of me and the preservation crew at Cabrillo just the other day. So thank you so much. Go ahead and quit screen sharing.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the review. And I have a few questions, but I think we're going to go into the breakout